I tried every vintage hi-fi store in Pennsylvania. This video is filled with some of the best vintage hi-fi I have ever seen in some of the coolest vintage hi-fi stores that I've ever been to. From small town gems to well-known vintage hi-fi stores that have been collecting vintage audio for decades, Pennsylvania is overflowing with vintage hi-fi. I experienced new, unique gear and met people who had stores from decades of collecting. You may not have a vintage hi-fi store within distance of where you live, but there is plenty of vintage audio out there if you know where and what to look for. Hopefully this video helps you experience something you haven't seen before, get a look behind the scenes, and learn something new about vintage hi-fi. We were in Mannheim, PA. We drove about 2 hours to get up here so we could show you a shop that I've been looking at for a long time, and that is the Turntable Store. Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my, oh, look at that. Oh, jeez.
That's coming out.
I love it.
Off next week.
Oh, I love it. Look at that.
That Rotel is unique.
1412.
Yeah.
Dang. And it's just, I get it. I feel it. I live it. I live it. This is amazing. Oh, they're all full.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
One day when I can buy in boxes, I buy in boxes. Then I have a hard time selling it. That looks so cool.
Yeah. Oh no, I love the boxes. Man, I love how the Techniques did the gray boxes too. That's cool. Techniques always had good boxes. Marantz had some of the best boxes, I think.
Yeah.
Where they had the pictures. Oh, is there one over here? Yeah, this is why I like the Marantz boxes. Look,
They were like so cool. Yes.
2230 AB. You can see exactly what it looks like on the box. That is so cool. Look, there we go. My favorite reel-to-reel. Look, you got a Marantz over here. Got some Sansuis. Oh wow. Here's an Onkyo tune. That's a tuner, T9?
Yep.
That is just wild.
Marble. This is made in Portugal.
Oh, look at
right?
that. Is that the marbles made in Portugal?
Yeah. So you flip it, it says made in Portugal. So these were American speakers made by Mirage. They sound amazing, but man,
They're heavy. They're
so
huge.
70s.
Look at that. Yeah, so 70s. Well, all the hi-fi back then was made because, you know, you didn't have, it wasn't like TVs and video games and whatever else. It was you're listening to hi-fi. So you had to have like a furniture build and put it into your house.
so cool.
Got an MA5100. Now, is this a lot of like customer units, or are these stuff you have coming out for sale maybe? MR7. Little bit of both.
A bit of customer. We're really try to downsize on that one.
Yeah,
I have so much of mine, you know.
20.
This is all mine, man.
Wow, that's
a customer right there.
1250. 2325. Get the big boys. Big boys. Look at the the Sharp front-loading turntables. Oh, that is cool. That's not one you see every day. They have dual tone arms. Oh wow. So the dual tone arms, you can read both side A and B without ejecting the vinyl. That is wild. Yeah, I'm just enamored. There's a Realistic, another Pioneer. Somebody actually just sent me a text that all I saw in the text was Pioneer SX680, and I didn't open it yet. So I don't know if they bought one or not. Oh, there's just so much crazy stuff. Oh, remote boxes. That's the best. That's how many remote boxes do you have?
Oh,
a lot.
Because this is just the point of the iceberg. I still have like three storage units.
Oh wow. See that it's wild how much you collect over time. Look at this.
In 8 years, you do.
You do.
And,
You get to the point where like, okay, this might be enough, and then you find something else.
Then somebody shows up, you know, and they said, "Oh, I have a Pioneer SX, 1250. What do you do? You don't buy it? You buy it."
You know, these 5 discs, I always had a lot of those, like tons of them, because everybody has one to trade in. Yeah, they sell really well.
Just go
Wow.
every day.
All the I didn't stop and show you guys the turntables. It's incredible. All the duals. They actually make some really good turntables that are new. There's your Pioneer tape reel box. That's exciting. Any kind of boxes like that. Very cool. All right, so back out here we have, oh man, look at it. All right, so now we're gonna look through this wall, see what is all throughout this, because I'm actually excited. I'm gonna tour it with you. Oh, they're doing a sound demo, so I'm gonna have to wait a second. Got a Guns N' Roses clock. That's pretty cool. A nice little vintage hi-fi stand with a Bose system. We go in here. This is the wall. This is the main wall we want to look at here. This is all of the vintage gear. So let's see what we have. We got a Tonica ST104 on Harman tuner. So it looks like the entire top is going to be all tuners. This Marantz over here is interesting looking. The Marantz ST310, I believe it is. That's an interesting looking tuner. We got EQs going across the top. Got some 8-track. You got DBXs, 8-tracks. I love 8-tracks. Noise reduction units. Go over, we got cassette decks. Lots of, this is an interesting, this is just a Philips cassette deck, but that's a really interesting build right there. I've never seen one like that. All the way up top, you actually have some Scott pieces, a Nightingale, which I'm not real familiar with, more cassette decks going down. This Revox CD player, really nice. The whole front comes out, super cool piece, like we saw over in the listening room. This is nice too, a K909 from Sony, the ES model. That is a just fire cassette deck. So the middle of the display here looks like all turntables, but you also have this Macintosh 275 amp. So that's the amplifier that they've had for several years. They've had this 275, and they changed a little bit over the years. But mainly, you know, rumor has it that they do minor changes like that so that the husbands can change out their tube amp without the wife knowing. You know, that may not be true, but it sounds like a good idea. Got a nice Adcom amp. I'm not too familiar with this one is here in the center. We got some nice turntables. You got a dual, got a Techniques. You got more Techniques. Over here, got a nice Philips AF 829. You got your Techniques SL23. But then over a little more, you get the Biogram 5000, which is really nice. The B&Os, the most collectible part is usually the cartridge. They're usually pretty expensive. But the nicest turntable I see over here would be the Revox, the B791. I mean, it has the tone arm. It's a linear tracking turntable, so the cartridge actually goes across here, and you set the tone arm up. So that's how you would position it to stop it. And when you want to play, you're going to put it over like that. That's really nice. Now above here, we have a Mitsubishi amp. These were actually made to connect to a metered front piece to show your power. So that's actually the back part of the power amp, and they connect on the sides to put the front piece on. I have a whole Rotel stack. Got some Emativa, Dynaco, SAE2, the audio research right there. That's a nice big power amp. Got a couple Adcoms, 545s, 2535s. So lots of good power amps on this wall. But the best part, and you'll have to excuse me a little bit because you know I have a new camera and I'm hoping this works out okay. So you're just gonna have to, you know, deal with it, but it'll be fine. We're having fun. So there's all this vinyl you can dig through here if you want, but I am interested in seeing what's on this wall. So we have a Mac 1900. That's when Macintosh made receivers, and they didn't want you to know it was a Macintosh, so they called it Mac. Underneath you got a Techniques SA200, got a Sansui 3900, Pioneer 828. A lot of really nice pieces. This is nice. So you got the Marantz 1060 and the 120 tuner with the scope, which is wild. Got a couple of these Marantz monoblock amplifiers. Those are nice. I haven't seen those in years actually. These used to be very popular, but I haven't seen those in a while. That's kind of cool to see those. Got a nice Carver C1 and lots of nice Got this Carver M400 power amp, and then got this Nico STA 9090, a nice MCS piece down here, 3249. Oh, here's the front. Here's the front piece of that Mitsubishi that I was talking about. So there's the power meters right there, and you would put that right on the front. Where's the amp? The amp is the amp is up there. So you connect that amp over to these power meters. These power meters right here. So we have vintage boxes all the way across the top, which is really cool. I love the Pioneer white boxes. They're my favorite. Oh, and the Marantz. Love the Marantz boxes because they show the units. What else we got up here? We have a 828 box. Then we got the AccuTrace turntable box where you could remotely skip your tracks on your turntable. It was a better idea than it actually turned out. So I guess this would be considered the speaker room. So as you can kind of see behind me, there's just speakers like all the way down. And then on the other side of me, there's just walls of speakers. So let's see what we can find. Let's see if there's anything crazy, because there's literally speakers everywhere. I'm not even familiar with what that one is on the floor. And these are massive speakers. I love all the signage. Got signage just everywhere. That's so cool. Yeah, they're unique, these speakers there and there on the floor. You got Infinities. Got some Infinities. You got some Kenwoods. You don't see Kenwoods in that design very often. We got some Polks, some PSBs, some more furniture style speakers right there. We go back here, and got a couple Centrex from Pioneer. There's a box down here for a Sansui QR 6500 quad receiver, and I'm guessing it's in there. And there's another one right there. That's wild. It's a nice quad receiver for sure. But there's all these boxes everywhere full of stuff. And then if you look, I guess it's just more speakers. Speakers everywhere. So you got Pioneers. Got Pioneers right there. We got subwoofers all around. Got the ever famous Bose, the one that they recalled. So you have that. You got some other. Oh, those are nice Bose speakers back there. I feel like you're all gonna get mad at me because I don't say the exact models of every single thing, but sometimes with speakers it can get you a little bit. You might forget some of them, but I try to do my best for you. All right, so what other speakers do we have here? We get those Realistics. The Realistics are cool. These are very underrated. They have the tweeters on top, which is really neat. Then you got the JBL 4310 right there. There it is. You know, the Pro model. A lot of studios use this, even the Beatles. So I'm pretty sure this was in the Beatles studio. So that's probably, you know, a good speaker for him here being a big Beatles fan. This is neat. What is this? So over atop the 901s, I'm just going to skip them for a second. It's a display of how the B&W speaker is made. See, that's what I like display stuff like that. This is probably from like 2000, something like that. The Matrix 800 series, which was great. I actually had a pair of those. It was a great speaker. So underneath you got a nice looking pair of 901s, and then you have the B&O speakers. These are wild and very interesting to try to open up if you've ever worked on them. But B&O in two sizes. They're actually pretty rare to see, which is really cool. We got another pair of 901s with the stands. And then you have the 501s. You got the Dynacos. So the big thing over here that I think is cool is you have the Bose spatial receiver right here that has the little, you know, front that comes down. You can see all the controls along it, which is really cool. And it even has the display, which is the owner's manual right on top. That's very exciting. So I think if, you know, as far as vintage speakers go, there are a ton of vintage speakers. Let me know in the comments which ones I missed, because I'm sure I missed a lot of them. Guys, this is Max.
Hi, guys.
And Max has been the owner of this store for 8 years.
8 years, long.
And but you've been in the industry for a long time, and that's why there's some really sick stuff in this store. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting. He's Italian like me, so this whole experience here has been loud and lots of hand gestures, because that's what Italians do. We talk with our hands.
We do.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
And this is Laura. She's in here. She's been helping us out too.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I am taking the records, I'm cleaning them, and then I'm putting them on the internet for sale.
Oh, the interwebs. That's where you can buy stuff.
Got this Bee Gees right now.
You have a website?
We do.
What's your website?
It is theTurntableStore.com.
TheTurntableStore.com. Awesome. So now you guys know where to check them out. I think I've seen it all.
I think you've seen it all, but I have a set of speakers that once I put the grill off, I want to see your face and
Okay.
your reaction to it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I went and saw
Look at
you.
it.
You had the JBL 4310s back here, which was in the Beatles studio.
Exactly. No, but you.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Have you ever heard of another Italian guy called Bertagni?
No.
You never look at the Bertagni speakers.
What, are these?
These.
These are the ones that I was sitting here staring at, and I'm like, what are these?
Now look at this. This is Mr. Bertagni, electroacoustic systems. all right?
Okay.
Now I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to do anything. Let me hook it up.
Okay.
Then I'll tell you what the deal is.
Let's do this. I was, out of all these speakers, the funny thing is that's what I was looking at.
Yep. I keep saying, I think after 40 years of stereo, you think you know it all.
You think you know it all. You never know. So what was interesting, when I went through this room
Yeah.
and I started looking at speakers, I just couldn't place all of them. Like, usually I can remember all the names, but there's just new stuff that I'm just seeing all the time. I'm going to get the full listening experience. I'm going to sit in this chair right here. I'm going to get to listen to some speakers. Usually it's the opposite way around. Usually I'm in your spot. Usually this is actually fun. I got to experience a couple other people shopping, and them looking at turntables, and I just thought that was the best. It was the best thing. Somebody setting up a new system and getting to try all kind of new stuff was very exciting. That's really interesting. All right.
So, this is practically the speaker, right?
Okay.
And guess what?
Well, I tell you, it sounded like it was coming from up here. It was a wild soundstage on these.
So Bertagni back in the 70s came out with this design. Actually, here's the speaker.
What is
There's no
that?
speaker.
There's no speaker. Are you playing one of those Bose tricks on me?
Styrofoam.
Wow. What?
Practically, the speaker per se, the structure is actually a styrofoam.
Oh, no way.
The cones were replaced by styrofoam and moved. So here's the woofer, here's the tweeter.
Wow. They sounded really good.
They're amazing.
Like, and the sound stage was just the wildest thing I ever heard out of something this size, and I never seen anything like this. This is just so no cone, it's all just styrofoam, and these are the
and all of
Bertagni SM100s.
Yeah, all of this in
Man.
like, what, 20 pounds to 15 pounds. They can also actually be hooked on a ceiling.
They can be on the ceiling?
On a ceiling right there, you can put it anywhere in the room.
That's where it sounded like most of the sound. Like I don't know if you guys can see this room, but when we listen to these, they're all the way down here, and you could hear it everywhere in the room. You know, we test tracked it with Hotel California, which is a good test track, especially for bass, and just like, oh man, wow. Couldn't test it for you guys because I can't play it, but it was exciting.
So, but if I want a second pair of regular speakers, I can't because all my sound goes through the equalizer, if you think about it.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
I never thought about that. Well, you can only use one pair of speakers
Or 2 pairs of 901s.
or 2 pairs of
You
901s.
cannot use 901s and regular speakers at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Unless you have that receiver.
Unless you have this one right here.
That receiver has 2 built-in 901 equalizer.
Yep, right there in the center.
And you can select in the back if the set A or set B as equalizer or not.
Is this one the one where the power button's the logo?
Yes, yes.
Yep, that's your power button right there. I'm going to expose that. Wow. You know, I never thought about that.
In the back, this one here, you can say, okay, I want set A equalized and set B non-equalized.
Yeah.
So see, so that's the only receiver, the way you can have is your main set,
Oh, no way. I don't know if I've actually
901s.
seen
or
this
other.
What model is this one?
This is the 551.
551. I've seen these, but I've never actually noticed that you can choose between 901 speakers and not 901 speakers. That's
cool.
That's cool. What else? What other kind of cool stuff do you have in here? You showed me the speakers that I was actually looking at before you even knew I was, and then the receiver that I was actually looking at before you even knew. We must like gravitate towards the same stuff, being like vintage hi-fi guys. Like we know what it is that we're looking for. It's the same stuff. That's wild. What? You got anything else?
Here's another fun one.
We got another one.
In this house, they had like tube gear, and this guy was like a fanatic with tubes.
Okay.
Amplify Macintosh, the top of the top. And then he had this speakers, which I end up buying it, and the only thing that is on the speaker is a number 49 cabinet.
Okay, so this is a mystery box.
That was a sort of a mystery box until I opened it.
Oh.
And I opened it, and inside I found old Klipsch La Scala components.
Really? So these are just like
Klipsch
secret La Scala speakers.
So practically no. And then I started to search deeper, and actually a customer of mine helped me with that. And then we find out that this was a company that did a box set, and they can personalize it with JBL Klipsch or whatever, or Altec Lansing.
Ah.
And you paid for the personalization, etc. These are all solid cherry, and people paid like almost $2,000 for the cabinets.
Back then?
Back then.
Oh my gosh.
So today,
Today it's like, somebody's at a flea market and they're just chucking it, but because they don't know.
So inside I got a Klipsch woofer, Klipsch mid horn, and Klipsch horn, and Klipsch screw.
Oh wow.
Fun.
That is fun. Man.
The number 49 cabinet. I remember that.
You got any stories from around here? Anything? What's your favorite thing here?
Oh gosh.
You don't know?
Receivers. I really like.
Is there like one piece where you're like, this is my favorite thing in this store?
Oh, I do really like.
It doesn't even have to be. It can be literally anything.
I like the little cassette radio thing. There's this little cassette radio that looks like a little purse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. You'll have to show me that. All right. Where is this? Oh, I bet it's this.
That's it right there. Yeah.
I bet it's this Sharp radio cassette deck right here. So she's been eyeing this up. I'm just letting you know. She's like, this better not sell. You might want to check the price. It might be way overpriced so that it stays. We have a listening room kind of set up. I can sit down here on the couch and listen to music. But if you look, it's a really nice setup. So you have what looks like a Fisher 500C. Let's see. Oh, no, it's a 400. All right, I was close. Got this Techniques turntable. And what is this? I don't even know what this is. And I'm not even familiar with the brand. Shoppe Lawrence. But that is a cool looking piece. I would recommend that you got yourself a Macintosh tube amp. Nightingale, I'm not familiar with those at all. The PTS-01s. Then you got the Revox CD player and cassette deck. Let's see. Everybody hates when I touch stuff. They might not be plugged in. So the Revox CD player, this entire center comes out and you put the CD in. So that's really cool. And then the cassette, you don't see the cassette that often, but that is a wild one. Up here you got a Macintosh tuner and a top-loading CD player. But what's really interesting is he is a Beatles fan, and he has all the original albums up here. Man, look at that. They're all, I'm guessing they're all going to be originals, but that is wild. I guess that's every one. You guys will have to let me know. I'm not a huge Beatles fan, but my guess is this is all the albums. Got some more Beatles albums. All kind of vinyl. You can listen to really whatever you want. These are cool over here in the window. These are the TIAC tape cleaning kits. I love seeing these things. I've actually never seen that many in one spot. That's how you know this guy has a passion for it, for sure. You get the Akai accessory box up there in the corner that has all your your extra pinch roller, your cleaning supplies, your microphones, just like you see down in here, like reel-to-reel microphones. Now there's tons of vinyl here. I'm not going to go through the vinyl today, but plenty of vinyl to sift through, all in really nice shape, and just lots of good stuff. We saw a couple people in here while we were here buying vinyl. You got tons and tons of CDs. I love CDs. I have a CD rack or CD visor. I have a CD visor in my car, so I love CDs. We got an Akai GX 4000D, the CR820 Yamaha. Very nice set. And behind me is even more CDs. We got a whole CD wall, which I'll probably look through because I like CDs. Look at that. That's an original right there. Got that sparkly colored light in the middle. You got a framed Woodstock ticket. That's sick. Sick right there. Good stuff. Oh, look, you got original boxes of the
everything.
Yeah, the V15 Type 3. That's so when I get like trade-in turntables sometimes when the turntable's not good, but it has one of these, I know it's a victory. I know what to do. That is wild. I also saw over here you got a lot of cool stuff. So this Electro Voice shows all the different styluses. That is wild. Get the Tokyo Electric Acoustico, which that is what TIAC stands for if you didn't know and you don't have one of these boxes, because honestly, unless you had one of these boxes,
I learned it from the same way you learned.
Yeah, unless you had one of these boxes, you probably don't actually know what TIAC stands for, and that is exactly how both of us learned. Both of us learned how what it stood for. I don't know why it wasn't published anywhere else. Oh, I love reel-to-reel tape. This is probably what I go to, I think, when I go in stores, because it's always cool to see what kind of original reel tapes are out there.
They're getting very hard.
Here we go, Abbey Road. I had this. I don't know if I still have this one, but I had the Abbey Road. Oh yeah, look at that. See, that's what you come in and you find something like that. Like, you don't see this every day. You don't see this kind of stuff every day. Wow. You got your blanks. We got cassettes. I love cassettes. I'll probably, I always talk about going to these stores and I never had the chance to buy anything. I could, but I'd be buying a lot of stuff. But I could always do cassettes. Cassettes would work. Oh, really? You worked at the Navy Exchange? That really?
Navy Exchange.
Oh, you have pictures?
I was Italian. Yes, I do have pictures.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Well, one day I'm going to come up. I want to look at these pictures.
I was unloading in the trucks, the NATO.
Oh my gosh. That's not what that picture on your website's from, is it?
Yeah.
That's your picture?
That's my picture.
Is that you?
That is, no, it's not me.
Oh, but you took that picture?
Yeah.
No way.
It was out of the building in NATO.
Oh my gosh, that's seeing pictures from the 70s of like the boxes of.
Yeah, I know. I lived that.
Oh my god. So I've been looking to come here for a long time, and I'm glad I did. I'll have to come back. You can come through. It's okay. We're just hanging out. It's no problem. We were just looking at the thing that you want. So I hope you guys enjoyed today at the Turntables. What is this town? Menheim? Menheim, Pennsylvania. Driving here, we were going through cornfields. We didn't know where we were. We're like, what did I type in the wrong address? But no, this is a great little small town full of, I guess it's a small town. I'm not sure. It's a small town, but it's like, it has that small town vibe outside. And I couldn't be more happy hopefully another day I can come back and see Max. And you guys should too if you're ever in PA. You guys sent me here. They voted me. So I put a poll out to ask, what state do you want me to go to next? So I started in Maryland. Where do you want me to go? PA? Do you want me to go West Virginia? Do you want me to go Virginia?
Oh.
And some people were voting me to go to West Virginia. And you know how many stores are in West Virginia?
2.
Probably 2. I have one place, though, that if you guys do send me to West Virginia, that I'm going to go to, and you guys are going to be excited for it. It may be exciting. It might not. It's the last of its breed, though, so... Thanks, Max. I appreciate it. It was awesome. Thank you. Good to see other Italian guys and having fun with HiFi. Guys, I just found a secret vintage HiFi shop inside this trading post. You have to see it. So today, I'm breaking the rules. That's right, I'm already breaking the rules and that guy's honking, which means he's probably not very friendly. I stepped outside of PA where you guys sent me and I came to New Jersey because I found a secret vintage HiFi shop in a trading post. And I left Pennsylvania because we were in Philly and it was close enough to New Jersey that I could come and check out a vintage HiFi shop out here. Barrack's Trading Post. Stereo, video, buy, sell, trade. There it is, guys. There's a secret vintage HiFi store within these 4 walls. Dude, this is insane. Look at this, just walking in. You got a Sansui G22000. I've only seen 3 of these, so that is just insane. It looks like they put LEDs up in there. So if you guys have never seen the Sansui G22000, you can see it's a receiver. It's a single receiver, and some people debate that it's separate, but it's like a half size deep for a monster vintage receiver, and all your inputs are on the sides. And you do that because the amp is just so big. If you had to put this in one box, you would never be lifting it. Right on top, you have a really nice Sansui RA5000 reverb. Watch as I turn this, see it kind of fades a little bit, gets a little blurry. That means you're getting a little more reverb on there. Really nice. But yep, if you've never seen it, there it is. You can hear the fan going on this thing. That's how powerful it is. So next to it, like you got a Techniques reel-to-reel. These are extra rare as well. This is the 1700. This has the auto reverse, but they're made famous because of how the middle is on these. So you can see it spinning right there. But how they have that open look. Even have one of the original reels on this one. So that is a 6 set. And underneath it, if you look at the receiver underneath it, so that shows the real size. The size of the Sansui over here this is Realistic's biggest receiver that they ever made, the STA 2100. And that is a massive receiver. But next to this guy, not even close. Like that's how large the Sansui is. It's just absolutely insane. You see, go back to it again for a second. You got this volume limiter here, so you can turn this so people can't turn the volume past it, and just all the bevels on each knob. A lot of attention to detail on this one. That's what makes it one of the most popular and rare receivers, ever made. And they have stuff all throughout the case here, even underneath. I mean, you got Sansuis, got a DBX down the bottom there, you got a Macintosh. That's the scope display. That's a really cool piece. You got an MR71, the famous tuner. Underneath, JBL Century 100s. Man, they're just packing a punch when you walk in this place. Some of the best known vintage audio out there. So you have the Century 100s. That's where the JBL had the drivers positioned vertical in the center instead of the odd diagonal positions that a lot of them have. They got the original grills that have, the little squares on them over here. We were listening to it a minute ago on the Fortes. Really, really nice setup. Got the Marantz 1120 and then a variation of a Dynaco SD70 on top. It looks like it's been completely redone. Really, really nice. That's just walking in. Like, we haven't even gone down this wall yet, but we will in just a second. I want to see the other side. The other side of here. They sell all kind of different retro games, and they sell some car audio. But here we got some other big vintage receivers over this side. So you got a Fisher 400. We saw one of those the other day in our Turntable Store video. The Nikko 8085 right there. And then look at this. You see that little quad light lit up there. This is the Sansui QRX 6500. And on top, you got a Technics SL 1610, Kenwood's KR 8840. This is Kenwood's like original monster receiver from the 1970s, right? So it's still a 4-channel quad receiver. But on top of it, they actually have somebody here that builds their own tube amps. So you got those, the JWN tube amplifiers on top. And then you got a case of tube amps down the bottom here. So you got a Macintosh 40, right? So that is a monoblock. And behind it, you have the other one. So you have the whole pair of Macintosh 40 monoblocks. And you got this one. This might be one of the custom ones. I'm not too sure. It looks like it's older though, so probably not. You got a Pioneer RG1. That's a great expander. If you don't have an RG1 and you collect Pioneer stuff, you need to go out and get it, like right now. Got a couple of the Adcom boxes right here, and then you got a Phase Linear 1000, a couple Fishers up top. Look at that. It's like a mini console Fisher tuner. That's pretty neat. Get the original Sherwood white tuners here. I love the way they did the logo on these. If you look at that old vintage Sherwood logo with the arrow and how that logo changed over time, you can actually see on the next one down. Just a little bit of a different design. I get the Fisher Tune-O-Matic. So what's really cool is it's an analog tuner, but over on this side, you can actually set different stations. There's a bunch of mini tuners built in, and you can program them, have them set up so that you can tune to your favorite station before they had all the digital program tuners. There's a lot of stuff here. This is going to be really, really good. I know I showed you some of the best stuff first, as I always do, but around me right now is vintage hi-fi, just it's overload. Okay, so the Sansui G 22,000 again. It's only the third time I've seen one. The first time I've actually got to sit down and listen to it, or stand and listen to it without any interruption. That was pretty fun, but there's a lot more here, so let's check out some of that. So next we have this entire wall over here. So we're going to look through this, see what kind of good vintage hi-fi awaits us. You got a wall of turntables down here, and up top, going across the entire thing, is vintage speakers. After we do that wall, we have another wall on this side, along with a giant mountain of speakers in the center, and just walls and walls and aisles of vintage hi-fi. All right, but before we go over there, you got to look at this wall here, because there's some really good stuff. You have a stack of Kenwoods, right? We have the KR 5400, the KR 4600, and a KR 4400, all kind of just going back in years as you go down. And then when we go over to this side, you got the KR 3600. That's the smaller model, obviously, of the 4600. You have one of the Sony STR 4800s here. And underneath one of the massive JVCs, the JRS 400. You got those really cool blue looking meters, and then you got the tuning dial, the little tuning lever over here, and then the EQ modular on the side. When they originally did the advertisement for this one, they showed this as like a removable block. I don't know if they ever made them where they were removable blocks. I don't think they did, but the way they advertised it, that's what they showed. But underneath, look at that. Look at all those Pioneers. Over here, you have the RT707, and you got two of them, not just one, but two with the original Akai reel. The RT707 is probably my favorite reel-to-reel just because of the analog meters in the center. I just love the way they glow and look while the tape's spinning. It's very good looking. You even have another one down here. So you have a RG2 down the bottom, followed by another 707, and then the TX9100, which is actually a really nice tuner there from Pioneer. All right, so let's check out this wall here. I'm just going to go down the whole thing for you guys. Got a G5700. Got a little more Sansui here. C77 preamp and amp. That's an interesting amp, actually. As the power goes up, the lights will go diagonal across there. A couple brands use that in the 80s. Not my favorite model, but it does have a really nice display. And a Nikko STA 7070, and then look at this. This is a monster receiver. This is Akai's biggest receiver, the AS 1080 DB. Look at that. That is just gigantic. Wow. Underneath, you got a Fisher 200 and a black-faced realistic receiver. Not super familiar with that, but you see a lot of these. If you ever see these vertical volume meters, one's for the right channel, one's for the left. That's how Realistic designed a lot of their receivers. We got a Sears. Look at that, a Sears receiver. probably made by Fisher or Sansui or one of those guys. It's like the Sansui 221. Got another realistic here, the STA 120. And again, you got the Pioneer QX 8000. You got a Luxman. So one thing I just saw the other day looking at some ads, this is a Luxman R1030. Luxman actually was known just as Lux for a while in the U.S., which I didn't know until I recently looked at some advertisements for them. Got a realistic. This is a quad realistic. Look at the way they put the audio rotor joystick there on the front. That's interesting. We got a Sony STR 5800. We got a Sony STR 6055. So this one is a little older. As you can see, the tuner lights up green, I believe, when you turn that one on. Just like the tuning dial on this Sansui 350A. It's going to all light up green there. Underneath, we got a SA510. This is an integrated amplifier, early 80s. But underneath, you got an Onkyo Integra receiver. Any of these Onkyo Integras, especially with the wood sides, are going to be excellent, no matter what they are. This is going to be, it's kind of like a Sony ES build. It's a better build than the Onkyo. Whenever you see those wood sides, pick it up. That's a good one. I got an ADCOM going up. You got a JVC 4-channel with the CD4. Then you got an older Sansui. You know, this one's going to be just lit up on the sides by 2 little bulbs, maybe even one. This is the model 3000A. This is going to be an early model. It might even, you know, if I'm guessing right, this is actually probably a tube model. Unless it says solid state on the front, which it does. So I'm wrong. It is solid state. And I don't even know, never seen this one. This is a Heathkit AJ1510, but it kind of resembles a phone almost, the way this tuner is made. The way these buttons feel, it's kind of like dialing. It's like dialing a phone. Very interesting. Over here you got a Rotel. See, you didn't know Rotel was making receivers and integrated amps back then. They were, and this one actually looks pretty good. I haven't seen this one before. It is smaller than most, but the way the front looks, and you can kind of see it, hopefully on video, it has a very interesting texture. Underneath that, you have one of Pioneer's early receivers, the SX1000TW. Got a Sony 6036A. I really like, if I was going with a vintage Sony receiver, it would probably be this one because of the way it lights up and the way the front looks, the way all these little bevels are made in here. When you light this up, this is an amazing series that's often overlooked for Sony. A lot of people are jumping on like the STR 5800, this type of series, or the V series. When you go to these, they have that Sansui look to the tuning dial, which is just amazing. All right, what do we got here? We got a Nikko NR500. That's going to be 80s. The Sanyo 2050. This one actually, for being a small receiver, has a lot built in. The knobs feel all really nice, but they have 2 power meters. You got the signal meters. You got all kind of functionality. It's not the biggest, probably not the best sounding, but it looks pretty darn good. And underneath, this is exciting. You have a Luxman receiver, and this is one of the ones where the front actually goes in and out, I believe. So these Luxmans are just insane looking. Look at the way the FM knobs, they're actually clear. So AM, FM, all your indicators and your tuning dials are made with like a clear plastic. And you have this section here that overlaps the controls. So I don't know if this is one of them, but a lot of them, they actually would move when you turn it on. Now underneath, you have a Heathkit. Go down, get a Sansui 350A. Got some B&O. Look, there's a B&O CD player, the CD50. And it just comes right out. Look at that. Oh, look, it even looks like the way the top of the B&O turntables. Look, that's pretty cool looking. It's a very interesting design. For sure. I know you guys are going to yell at me for doing that manually in the comments, so go ahead, let me have it. A giant Heathkit up here, a Lafayette LRK 900A. This is more of a vintage style. I mean, I guess a vintage style Lafayette would be a lot older than this one. It's definitely an early 70s model. Just like this, the Harman Kardon 630. Now, these are the twin-powered Harman Kardons that are very popular. This one has a little bit of a gold tint to it, just from probably smoking over the years. But this is a wonderful receiver for sure. Lights up green, has the various tiers of tuning dials in there. It's just amazing. And this one's actually pretty cool too. This Kenwood, the TK140, I haven't really seen this one before.
But I love the way it has the wood wood vinyl on the side. That is super 70s. I love it. Going down, we have the realistic SA1000A, followed by the STA64B. Everything on this one's silver, even the back. It looks a little white, but just the whole thing is done in silver. So that's a Radio Shack model, but then underneath you got the JC Penney's model, the MCS 3225, and then under that, this is a really good receiver, guys. If you ever see this one in the wild, it's time to pick it up. The Toshiba SA725. Toshiba doesn't get a lot of love for vintage receivers, but this is an excellent receiver for sure. Underneath, we got a Pioneer, some cracked glass there, got a Lafayette, just lots of tuners going down. A Yamaha CR620, excellent receiver. A Sansui TR707A. Sansui 4000, the Pioneer TX6200 tuner. You got a lot of turntables mixed in. Let's see. If you guys see anything, let me know. Let me know in the comments. But there's lots of turntables. Oh, let's look down here. This is interesting. What is this? Here's another Toshiba. Wow, it's an odd design. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that. The signal and the tuning meters are very slim, and then nothing above it. But an interesting one. I don't think I've ever seen this model before. Toshiba ST420 tuner. I'd like to see the rest of the system that belongs with. Should be pretty interesting. Then you got a Marantz. So this is a cool piece. Another one I've never seen. Look at it. It has that 70s Marantz look, but a little bit different. So this is the 2020 tuner. I don't know about that. I don't know how I like it. I like the way it looks. I'd love to see it lit up. But a very interesting look for a Marantz for sure. It's even a different color blue. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's a darker blue than most of the other Marantzes are. So lots of crazy stuff down here. Turntables for days. And you get down into the pro mixing, got all kind of pro stuff back here. These speakers look like file cabinet. I've never seen anything like that. You see something new doing this all the time. I mean, you have hundreds of different types of speakers. That's why usually I don't spend all the time. Look at that Fisher logo. That is an interesting. That must have been after they were sold for sure. See a lot of speakers. Can't keep up with all of them. Just the familiar ones, like the 901s that are up here. You know, you can be familiar with those, the Sansuis down the end. If you look up behind me, you're going to see more vintage reel-to-reels, so we'll check those out. But everywhere you look here, there's something hiding in a corner that you just didn't even realize was there. Now, the first two reel-to-reels up there, they're going to be a Kai's. You got a GX620, it looks like, and a 625. These reel-to-reels are good forever. They have glass heads, and they're some of the most reliable reel-to-reels on the market. Next, you're going to go in the opposite direction. You're going to see a Sony reel-to-reel, which are not the most reliable. Then you have a TX and an Atari. I'm not as familiar with the Ataris. A lot of nice reel-to-reels up top. Going down here, you see a lot of vintage speakers. Let's see if there's anything that really sticks out to me there. You got some Infinities here. Of course, you got Advents, some Sony speakers. Got your Bose, got your furniture style speakers. Everybody tells me never to skip out on the furniture style speakers, just in case. You never know what's going to be in them. More Advents. There's all kind of speakers all the way around the top of this store. It's just so wild. If you guys know any of these speakers are that I didn't talk about, be sure to put them in the comments. But we do have one pair that we pulled down the bottom because I thought this was really interesting. So they have like little knobs, so it actually kind of looks like a piece of furniture that you can open. Now you can't open it, but it gives you that appearance that it is some kind of piece of furniture with little knobs that you could pull open. Above them we have the Weltron, that famous 8-track globe style 8-track there. That's super cool. Let's see what is sitting up here, if there's anything cool. We got a lot of pro amps. This is kind of like a pro section down here, a lot of guitar amps, keyboards, all that good stuff. But as you go over, that's going to change. And as you go down, there's a bunch of components here. Look, here's a Phase Linear, the Phase Linear Model 2000 Series 2, a couple cassette decks, more speakers, a whole section of ADCOM components over here in NAD. These all complement each other really well, as well as a Carver there. Looks like another Weltron, the Pioneer 8-track there. Lots of 8-tracks, reverbs, all the different EQs there. You got Realistics up top. You got the BSRs, which are really nice because they have the little light up display in the middle. The Sansui SE7. That's a really fantastic EQ. No lights, no colors, but really nice nonetheless. You got a Sound Craftsman. This one's interesting. This is a Sound Craftsman, but it's a more vintage Sound Craftsman. It must be one of the originals. I'm not real familiar with that. Just like I'm not familiar, not with this one. This is the Pioneer SG9800, but the 100. So that's like an original Denon EQ. I'm not familiar with that one at all, but that's pretty cool. I didn't even know they made one. So of course, when I find the stores to go to on Google, you never actually know. I've never been here before. I didn't call. I just surprised them. Hey, how's it going? I want to check out the store. And you can't always tell how much is in a store from Google Pictures, right? And that's the case here. There's so much. I'm hoping I get enough of it for you guys, but it's literally everywhere in the store. There's something. And I mean, to the point, like, just look behind me, how much stuff there is. Just everywhere you walk. There's speakers, there's amps, there's reel-to-reels, there's cassette decks, there's this guy. Just
Hey, what's up, guys?
wherever you go, you're seeing something good. You having fun?
Yes.
So we got CD players over here, multi-disc CD players. Go over, we got more cassette decks and another stack of turntables here. But what's really cool over here, you have an 8-track Akai in the box. Like, that's pretty nice, right? You don't see that all the time. And we've been looking at a lot of reels lately. We've been finding these all over. A lot of these stores have original reel-to-reel tapes. So here you have a Johnny Cash, you got a Steppenwolf, you got the Rolling Stones. Wow, a lot of really cool original reels, which is, they're getting harder and harder to find. But, we've been finding out that, hey, they are out there. So over here, I pulled the cover off. I sat it on top of the other one, but this is an ohm speaker. And just look at the way that the tweeter or the cone of the speaker, I don't even know how these are made. You guys are going to have to correct me in the comments. But this is my first time really seeing one of those. I'm familiar with them, but I've never listened to them. To me, it looks like how AMT built their speakers, the A1 or the 1A, whatever it was called. They have that same look. They have that same, grill that goes over top the driver there. So it's just a unique design they decided to do. Not too familiar with what that is. That looks kind of custom. You got these big powered infinities here, some Fisher speakers. Let me know again if you guys are familiar with any of the ones that I'm missing. You got a nice pair of clips going across the top. We got some Paradigms. You got more clips. MB Court, not familiar with that one. I got some JBLs. Lots of crazy stuff here. Look at all these speakers. They go everywhere. This is insane. Got these giant Accustat speakers here, which look like they might be powered around the back. Nope, they're passive. Not familiar with these ones with the red drivers. There's a lot of speakers here. I don't think I can name them all. What is this? The Kenwood Super Woofer. I have never seen anything like that. SW500. That is a very unique subwoofer. That is not Wife Factor approved for sure. But lots of subwoofers here, including this really nice giant one on the end. A Sony Trinitron. Look at that. Down the end here, we have a 1959 Gibson guitar. It is amazing. In the case, pretty rare. I do not know everything about guitars at all, but that is a high-end, valuable guitar right there. The Gibson ES 335. Look at that. And look at these custom little guitar pieces on the sides of the wall. Those are pretty cool. You got a Pink Floyd, you got an Ozzy. Look at the bull. He's coming for you. What is that? That is a Panasonic word processor. That's wild. I wonder what the disco machine was over here, but it was actually just this clock. That is amazing. Get that. I wonder what year that's from. So I was looking through the videotapes they have, and I saw this right here. So West Coast Video was the video store that I used to go to as a kid. And that's how I get into professional wrestling, just renting wrestling tapes from West Coast Video pretty much daily through my entire childhood. Some other ones here too. You got Blockbuster, a couple other ones. That's the fun thing about looking at VHS tapes. You always see where they used to be rented. So this is the second television ever made. See the tuner right on top? Now, could you imagine if we were still watching TV on something like this today? It'd be a whole different way of watching YouTube, that's for sure. I didn't expect any of that. Like from what I saw online, there was a couple vintage receivers. When you go to the trading post in person, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of vintage hi-fi components scattered throughout the store. It's almost like a cool scavenger hunt going through their store. It's amazing. We're on the search for vintage hi-fi. Today, we're in Pennsylvania, and it's brought me to a cemetery in downtown Philly, kind of. Guys, I'm here at Mort's TV and Video, and this is a stereo store that's been in business since 1956. So they're gonna know their vintage hi-fi more than a lot of people. And from the looks of what I saw on Google, this place, man, they got a lot of vintage hi-fi. You guys are gonna love it. I can't wait to go in. Let's do it.
Now, honestly, when coming here, I was a little worried looking from the outside. You can't really tell that this is a vintage hi-fi store. At least until you walk in, because when you walk in, this place is insane. Wall-to-wall vintage hi-fi. See the receivers, turntables, cassette decks, all kind of stuff all around the store, including these speakers that were just stacked across the middle. This was insane.
There's so much in this store. It's ridiculous. I can't wait to show you everything. And there is a lot. I'm going to do my best. This is wild. And it's all so clean.
So before I take you in the store, I'm going to show you behind the scenes back in the repair center where there's just vintage hi-fi stacked from floor to ceiling that's about to be worked on. I even found a pair of vintage JBLs. Now these L100s are different, more the Pro configuration compared to the L100s that I saw last week at Barrack's Trading Post. And of course, these were the speakers that were made famous in the Max L Blown Away ad, and these are in phenomenal condition. They need a little bit of sanding, repainting, but they are gonna look and sound great when they're completed. Now there's a ton to look at in this store. You can see the receiver wall right there, and that's actually where we're gonna start out. Go through all the vintage hi-fi receivers on that wall. We're gonna look at the turntables in this corner, then move over to the cassette decks. That far wall back there has a lot of miscellaneous hi-fi, and then you have all the speakers that are throughout the middle of this store. Now, there's a lot of things here that are not going to be plugged in, and at the end of the video, I'm actually going to show them all lit up so you can see what they look like when they're powered on. Now, the first thing we see when going through the receivers is going to be this Pioneer SX3700 on the bottom. I call it the beach receiver because of the way it glows. And then on top of it is a Pioneer SX680 from 1978. This next receiver you don't see very often. It's a Technics SA616 with the power meters over on the left, so as the volume increases, the power meters move back on both sides. Now on top of that, you have the Yamaha RN2000. Now this one, over the years, it has a digital tuner in there. It is known to have some digital tuning issues, but is completely fixable, and is a great sounding receiver. Now as we move up from there, you're going to have a Toshiba SA220C. I've actually never seen this one before. It's small, but it looks really nice. I mean, not every receiver is going to be a monster receiver, but I really like the contrast with the blue tuning meter next to the silver tuning dial. Now underneath here you have a Pioneer QL600A. This is a quad integrated amplifier, and all four of those meters are going to move and light up when hooked up to four speakers. Next we have a Pioneer SX525. That's going to be your 1972 model with the blue, more of a darker blue lit dial. But next to it, there it is, the Hi-Fi Holy Grail, the Pioneer SX1980, 300 watts, okay, 270 watts of pure power from 1978. You have the giant power meters on the front. Not often do we get to start the videos out with the Hi-Fi Holy Grail, the Monster 1980. And on top of it, there's the smaller model, about 3 models down, the SX980, which is just an incredible looking receiver. And all these 80 series are just completely beautiful. If you look, the tuning dial has something that I really enjoy. It's where it kind of just sparkles in the light. If you see that, all the different stations going across. This is also a monster receiver that doesn't completely break the bank. Now on top of it, you have a Sansui T60 tuner. I'm not too familiar with that one.
Going over, we have a Pioneer QX4000. So that's going to be an early quad. And here's an interesting looking Sony receiver, the STR1800. Not very familiar. That looks like an early 70s version. Then underneath, you have another Pioneer SX980. Now, another thing I want to point out on these is how the indicator lights are in the center. They light up all different bright, almost neon colors that look really, really nice when it's turned on. So that's another option that they added to this after the 50 series. The 80 series, just a little more detailed, a little more colorful, and a little more shiny. And it has the power meters that the 50 series does not have. Here are a few Marances. We have a Marantz 2252B. That's the full silver look that glows blue in the middle, but it doesn't have any of the black around it like the one beneath it. So that's the silver series. And then underneath, we have the Marantz 2270, which is in a wood cabinet. This is one of the most famous vintage receivers of all time. And then you can look across, it has just the black and the dial portion of the receiver. Now, early models of this actually had etched faceplates where if you touch the logo, you could actually feel the indents into the faceplate. They were a little more champagne than silver, so that's how you can tell if it's an early version. Now, going down below, we have a Scott 388B. This is probably like an early 70s, but look how the grate is on top. It has like that metal golden grate. Scott's always looked really nice, kind of like a Fisher to me. Underneath, we have a Marantz 2252B like we saw earlier, and then an SX780. Now, this is the most popular vintage receiver of all time in terms of sales. This sold more than any other receiver during the 1970s. The SX780 was the most popular of all time, more because it was a mid-price point receiver, unlike this one. Under it, that is a Pioneer SX1980 and costs a ton of money. You can see, you don't usually get to see two SX1980s side by side next to each other, but you do see it here. Underneath, we have a Technics SA5370 with the blue dial going across the front, like almost soft blue look. And then underneath is the more popular Technics model, the SA600. This is one of the best mid-level receivers of all time. You have this light up power meter on the left, you have tuning signal meters on the right, and then you have all your indicators right in the center. The Technics SA600 is a go-to receiver, very reliable, and a great choice in a mid-level receiver from the 1970s. Now over here we have a Marantz 2230. This is a good mid-level Marantz receiver that's not going to break the bank and still give you 30 watts per channel into two pairs of speakers. You see it has the black dial across the front, much like the 2270, but silver over the bottom buttons, which some of the other ones do not have. Now the one under this is going to be the Technics SU8088. I don't know a ton about this integrated amplifier from Technics. It looks pretty powerful, and I think there's a meter right there for your power. Plus, it actually has some really nice laid out controls. Now next, we have another one of those vintage Scott receivers. This time it's a Scott 382B. Again, the one thing that I do like about these receivers is the detail on the front of all the control knobs. Plus, I like the way it glows when you actually turn it on. It has a dark blue glow. Not super, super bright, but it looks nice. Now, underneath it, this is a monster receiver from Nico. I've never actually seen this one in person before. This is the NR1415, and I cannot wait to see this one lit up because the way that this dial is just looks completely incredible. The color contrast with the yellow indicator labels, and then you have what looks to be blue meters and a white tuning background. It's just laid out perfectly. It looks like a machined marble how big this thing is and how much detail is actually put into it. I've never seen one before. It's pretty cool. Can't wait to see it lit up. There's a Marantz 2216B, and underneath you have another SX780. You're always going to see a lot of this one. It was the most popular, most purchased vintage receiver of all time. We have a, looks like an older Sansui. This is a 2000. This is not the most popular Sansui receiver at all, but I do like the way Sansui would etch the top rears of all their cases for ventilation because these receivers did tend to get hot. Now underneath you have another one of those 2270s. Again, that's one of the most popular Marantzes of all time, and next to it's one of the most popular Sansuis of all time, the 9090DB. Now there is an argument, is the DB better than the 9090 without it? I don't know. I've listened to them both. I kind of do prefer the way the 9090 sounds, but I like the looks of the buttons on the DB a little better. So I love how they put the tuning meters in the middle. Both of them do that. They have the bright blue glow and look beautiful. And this one right here, this is the Harman Kardon 730 twin powered receiver. These are super popular because of how they glow green in the middle when they're turned on. So one I can't wait to see actually plugged in. A 730 is hard to find. Then here is the Fisher before it was sold and became Fisher. Now these dials were actually painted on the back of the glass. So you got to be careful if you're ever cleaning one of these things, because one wrong wipe and you are completely done. These are good sounding but low powered vintage receivers. And underneath, what the heck is this? This is a Teledyne from Packard Bell. So I'm not even sure what this is. It actually looks like the front is curved, which is just wild. And then it looks like it's got a leather top. Oh, it's not actually leather. It looked like it was going to be leather on the front, but it's not. But it has that feel to it. I've never seen anything like this. What do you got? The balance, oh no, wait, that's your tone controls over there on the left. The up and down, kind of like the Radio Shack used to have. This is an interesting looking receiver. And again, I've never seen anything like it. And it looks like it's quad from the controls on the right, but I can't wait to see this thing lit up. It's wild. Next, we have a Lafayette LR 1500 TA. That's the bottom one. Again, another one of those painted dials. And on top of it, you got a Fisher 201. Not too familiar with that one either. Then we're going to go over here. What do we have? Well, let's start up top. We have a Pioneer SX 424. That's from 1972. It's definitely one of their smaller 2-channel receivers. Not like this giant monster Sansui QRX 5500 that's underneath. Look at all that. I mean, that's a big receiver. Next we have a couple more Marances. We have a 2226B. That's another one of those all silver face receivers. And then underneath of it, it looks like we have a 2265. Now here's another example of how they actually put this silver like faceplate over the bottom under the tuning dial, and it's etched in black liner. So Marantz has had all different kind of looks, and a lot of times you're just looking at what preference and what look you desire when picking them out. I mean, the power is going to be equal in a lot of the different models of the same numbers. Now, talking about power, we're going to go down here to my favorite vintage Marantz receiver, the 2325, and has a 3 because it's gone over 100 watts. You have all the controls across the front here. You have the blue dials, but 125 watts into 2 channels. Look at all the knobs and buttons on this thing. Plus, it's in a wood case. Plus, it's 125 watts. That's why this thing is one of my favorite Marantzes of all time. And on top of that, we have a Macintosh C26 preamp. Then over here, you have one of Kenwood's integrated amps. I always loved the Kenwood integrated amps just because of the layout and the sound and the look. They have the volume knob right in the center, which really kind of gives them something different than everybody else. And it's just a clean sounding, beautiful integrated amp. Then we have a Macintosh MR7083 tuner. Not super familiar with that model. Up here you have a smaller integrated amp from Pioneer, so this would be similar to the Kenwood. This is the Pioneer SA6502. And then we have one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Pioneer tuner of all time, the TX9500. They made 2 versions of this, but this went with the 50 series, and it would go into the spec rack, so you can actually put it in the rack along with all your spec components, like the one that's right here, the Pioneer Spec one. This is my favorite preamplifier of all time. It has a ton of different controls on it, and it just looks completely insane. Look at the handlebars on this thing. All the knobs have little etches in them, and you can hear every twist and turn. It's beautiful. And then there's a smaller tuner here. If you don't want that giant big spec set or something, get the smaller tuner, and underneath a Kenwood tuner as well. And then, hey, there's another SX980. These are great receivers. I'd stock up on them too if I had them. There is the Pioneer SX850. So if you've never seen the difference between a 50 series here with the warm white lights all orange indicators and the tuning and signal meters next to the Pioneer SX80 series. Well, there you go. There's both receivers. Now, one's a 980, one's an 850, but they're both the same size. Now, there's a lot of people that like the looks, including myself, the 980 better, but the 850 over here, that one is typically one that people say sounds a little better. So it's a give and take on which one you would choose. Let me know in the comments which one you would choose. Finally, this Sansui QX4500 quad receiver and an ejectable turntable. Now, this next corner is packed with all kind of gems. We're going to start all the way at the bottom with the Aragon Palladium. This was released in 1994. They called it the Balance of Power. Now, this Nakamichi 630 is an interesting piece. It has the plastic cover because if you sit it on a counter, it's actually sloped front to back and sits like that. But there is a rack that you can actually put it so it faces forward. The Nakamichi System 1 rack stacks all those diagonal cut components and makes them flat. Here's a look at the inside of the 630. I thought this was pretty cool as well. Now we have a Vincent. This is the SV236MK2. This Advent 315 watt receiver from 1977. Going over, this is super interesting. So there's a Rotel here. I'm not even sure of the model, but it has a clear top, like it was a dealer display edition. I always think that's just the coolest thing, when you can actually see inside of it and see how the receiver is made. I didn't even know Rotel did that type of thing. Now going up from there, we have a couple more ADCOM pieces, an amp, you got a preamp, you got this wheel lock AA60 over here. I don't even know what that is, but a lot of different components. But then going down here, we have one of the more interesting pieces in the shop. This is the Harman Kardon A500, and that is an integrated amp. It's a tube integrated amp, and it has the wood case as well. Now, the interesting thing about the A500 is that it actually came as a kit that you could put together, and it was like a beautifully made kit you can see in that box. And then they also had the tuner, the F50XK. It's also a tube tuner. I always wanted to put together a vintage tube kit like that, so maybe one day I'll find one of those that hasn't been built. Here you have a Rotel preamp and amplifier, and then over here you got a Dynaco ST400. Now this is a massive power amplifier. I mean, you can see how it was built. The ultimate amplifier, the Dynaco Stereo 400. They made them with and without the meters, and you know, the one with the meters is always going to be my favorite, just like this Pioneer M90 stereo power amp. You don't see too many of these especially working because they do have a known issue that happens to a lot of them, and most of them that you do see, they are heavy and that front panel breaks off. Now, I haven't seen this model before, the Citation 12 Deluxe, but it's a Citation amp. There's a picture of the back for you guys so you can see what it looks like. The front's just kind of a cover covering up the amp. You got a couple Sonic Frontiers. I've used these in the past. They're going to be tube preamps, and they're actually, you know, pretty nice stuff. You got a couple more Dynacos on top of that. There's another Sonic Frontier, including a CD player. I didn't even know they made CD players. Then to the left, you have another Aragon. You have a power supply and a 28K preamp as well. Some cool stuff back there. Now, the next section we'll look at is actually behind these giant speakers. That's going to be the cassette deck wall. And we're going to start off with this Pioneer CTF 1000 cassette deck. Now, this was part of Pioneer's Spec Rack series. And then underneath of it is a TIAC A650, which kind of has a little resemblance to the Pioneer. But let's go back to this one. So this was part of that Spec series. So if you put it with the Spec 1, the Spec 2, and 4, and do the entire rack, it actually had handlebars that you could rack around the cassette deck. And I just love the way that this looks. From the dust cover that covers up your pin controllers and your motor. And you know, a lot of people do like this model with the floor scan. You see these more often. They're a little bit easier to fix. This is the CTF 900. And you know, similar, very nice deck, but very much more common than a working CTF 1000. Now, going down even farther, we have a Sony cassette deck. Any of these Sonys are going to be super reliable, no matter what the model. But underneath this Denon, This one looks really nice. So any of these with the rosewood sides, I would keep an eye out for that. It's going to probably resemble something like a Sony ES cassette deck, but this is a nice cassette deck, the Denon DRM44. And then underneath, you have the multi-cassette player, right? So you could actually stack a bunch of different cassettes in there and just have them play continuously throughout the day. So that's really cool. You got a Nakamichi LX3. You actually have two of them over here. They have that silver front. Very reliable cassette decks, all the Nakamichis are. And then underneath, you got a Techniques. You got a Sharp cassette deck, like a top loader right here. Not always my favorite, but very nice looking as well. You know, early 70s. And a couple other components on this wall as well. Just a nice wall of components. And then there's this Emerson. Now, this thing looks exactly like an MCS, which would have been sold by JCPenney's, but I mean, look how massive that is. This one has the black face. You get a couple of VCRs on top. So, you know, what else we got here? There's not too much on the tuner wall I want to show you, with the exception of this Sansui T1000. Now, this one just mainly because there's these little indented buttons that I think look pretty cool, and I haven't seen this one before. But, you know, I don't know, maybe it's not the best tuner, but it definitely has a cool look to it. Now it's time to check out all the speakers. Okay, maybe just some. We got all these on the front. You got a bunch of Bose, you got some Advents. You got this cool Techniques rack. Now, this is an original 90s Techniques rack. So if you were shopping at like Sears or, you know, wherever these entry-level mid-fi racks were sold, you could get that all together as one package with speakers. And it's interesting to see that intact. Look at all the speakers. We're going to try to get back here. I can't really fit through all the rows to pull everything off and show you, but we're going to start with these Infinity Kappa 8s. I mean, look at these things. These were extremely popular. All the Kappa series are very collectible, very popular, good sounding speakers. And we're actually going to open them up in just a second, but I want to look at these giant speakers at the end. So on the way, we got some NHT speakers. Then you have some, I don't even know what those are. You got some Advents on the bottom. And now you got these giant, oh, these are NTHs too. Wow, look at the size of those speakers. Like, I don't know if they were meant to go next to your big screen projector TV or if they were just meant to be hi-fi speakers. But that is a big speaker. Let's see what's inside this thing. So I feel like it's all made with cabinet. Yeah, look, there's two drivers and a tweeter, and that's it. The rest of it is cabinet. So I don't know if it's just a way of the sound going through. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to get to see the rest of these because I couldn't fit. But let's get back and look at the emit tweeter and just how they did the mid-ranges with the logo, the polygraph mid-range there. And then look at this refoamed giant woofer with that Infinity logo in the center as well. The Kappa series, very, very collectible. Now, checking out the turntables, we're going to start with one of my favorite, one of the most recognizable turntables of all time, the Kenwood KD500. This is that granite plinth turntable. It's one of my probably top 10s of all time. You got a Techniques SL1700 MK2. You got some duals in here. You got another Techniques SL1700. Then lots of EQs and DVD players, VCRs, CD players, all kind of stuff down the bottom. But let's look at these Pioneer SG9500 EQs. Now, this EQ is my favorite EQ of all time. Now, there are some that have better displays. This one only has a little light there when you power it up. But for sound quality and looks, I mean, look at the size of that thing. It looks great. Over here, you got a couple more turntables. You got Garage, Techniques. You got a JVC QL-A2 over here, which is a larger JC. And then a couple more Pioneers as we look through the bottom. So I'm here at the Stereo Shop in Pennsylvania, and I've known these guys for a while, but I've never actually come out to the store, and I'm finally going to get to see what kind of vintage audio they have inside. Let's do it. Now, the Stereo Shop is actually in Williamsport, PA, which is the home of the Little League World Series, so that's what this town is pretty famous for. And you know, this store has been around for a long time, and you can really tell when you get inside. Now, it's a little messy, but they just had a truckload of vintage audio come in. Now, they took me right to the back room to show me this Marantz set that they had in the back, but I told them, hey, let's get it out. Let's check it out up close. on the counter, but first he wanted to show me a special Thorns turntable with a very unique tone arm.
Rabco original straight line arm. This is the first one.
Wow.
Looks like the battery was left on there. That's what it lifts up. It is real Goldberg to the
So what's it
extreme.
powered by a D battery?
Lifting it. It looks like we need another deep battery. Let's see if we have one in here. Normally you take this off so when it sits for a while. But SME base, Thorns TD125, and the original Rabco arm. And it works by being pulled, and there's a tripwire in there. And when it gets like kind of to the right, it moves the rear end and does this all the way through and keeps it pretty much straight in the groove.
The Thorns TD125 was made from 1968 until 1975, and it was the follow-up from the TD124. Now, the SL8E tone arm from Rabco was built in the 1960s, and it was equipped with two different motors, one for arm lifting and the second for horizontal movement. Now, this three-piece Marantz set from the 1960s is pretty valuable. The combined resale on this is probably around $8,000, with this 8B amplifier commanding the most money at about $4,000. Now, the 8B retailed at $264 and is a 35-watt stereo amplifier, again built in the 1960s to go with this set. It should last for several years. It's built like a tank, and again, this is the most expensive piece at about $4,000. Then you have the 7T, which you can tell is the more valuable model because of the black knobs on the front. They have other variations where it's silver, and they just don't have as much value. Now, these have kind of gone down a little bit. You're looking at probably $800 to $1,500, but the back of this preamp is incredible. So the tubes come out the bottom, you have all the inputs and outputs up top, and then look at all the plugs on the left. That's just completely insane. This is one of the most famous preamps of vintage audio. Just from the sheer number of inputs, it pretty much blows everything else from the 1960s away, and that's why this is like very highly regarded. Now, you can't see the inside, but it does have the Bumblebee caps, which are also very highly regarded and sought after in the vintage audio world. Now, the 10B tuner has that tuning scope on the front, so that's that big tube that you see on the left. It's a tube tuner, and actually we're going to see this in action later because the owner of the shop actually has one in his house that's currently being used. This is a very rare tuner, and it goes for about $2,000 right now, so pretty hefty for a tuner, but this one's very clean. You can see they have the etching in there. Now, this one was obviously kept probably in a wood case. A lot of times this model specifically is in pretty rough shape, and to have a set that is in this good a shape together is also very rare. You don't see this nice of a set again together as a set is rare enough, right? Some people have one piece, some people have another, but to see all these together, and hopefully they're going to be kept together. Usually when someone has all three, they're going to sell it as a lot. But I mean, if you want like a really nice vintage stereo from the 1960s, that's it. If you want a nice reel-to-reel player, there is an Akai 747 in black. Very rare. You get a Nakamichi LX3. Now, these are from the stacks of stereos that he literally just got in that weekend. It's always so interesting when they have the original reels branded. Like, there's a black Akai reel. It's never been used in the box, which is also very rare. I think this is the first time that I actually saw the Akai boxes that the reels came in. It's rare enough to see the reels in general. And the case, now that is extra rare. You get a Sansui 9090 DB. Got a Technics receiver there. Very nice. I love the little blue lighting. It looks great when it's lit up with LEDs. Super cool stuff. And there's just stacks of this all over the place. It was really cool to come in and like see everything piled up when you just got a haul this weekend. Got some original Clips Heresies. I really love seeing this stuff all stacked up like it just came in. You got a Marantz down the bottom, all silver, that like blue light up when you put the LEDs in. And you got a Macintosh 2-channel amplifier. That's the MC300, a big amp. It's a lot bigger in person than it probably looks like. We got a Sansui quad receiver on the bottom with a 5000X stacked on top of it. Now this stack is actually in the back room, so the stuff's stacked not only on the floor, but the reason that is because the back room is just completely filled from like floor to ceiling with vintage hi-fi. You got a Marantz 1150. Now this is a really cool integrated amp. Love that. Any of these Kenwoods. You have the KA 5700 here. I'm gonna go back down. Maybe I can see it a little better. There you go. So you got the QR 4500. I couldn't see it before. It was just a little bit too dark. Again, there's the Sansui 5000X and the Marantz 1150. I love these integrateds from Marantz and these integrateds from Kenwood. Whenever you see the volume knob in the middle like that, I mean, you know you have a good amp, especially with the meters. You got a Kenwood tuner if you want to match it. So in case you wanted to get the tuner, they're not usually sold as a set. Now on top you got another, you got a KA 5500, a little bit smaller but very, very similar. A Yamaha CT610-2, then you have the Marantz 1030 right on top of it. Now back out on the counter, you got a Pioneer SA9500 integrated amp. You got a TX6200 tuner, SA1000 amplifier. Oh yeah, you're good. Got a SA5200 amplifier. I haven't actually seen that one before. SX424. And over here, you got a 2015 original box. And there it is, the 2015 for that right there. And look, over here, check this out at the bottom of the pile. It's not a Sanyo, it's a Sankyo. And I don't know much about that brand at all. There's a realistic, a Sherwood. I've never heard of a Sankyo. I mean, I'm sure I've seen one, but just not too familiar with that. Now, of course, there's shelves full of hi-fi all over the store when you get behind the piles of stuff that just came in. Like this Marantz 4300. It's a quad receiver at 100 watts per channel, meaning why they have that 300 instead of the typical like 42 or the 2200 series. You got some newer stuff mixed in as well, but a lot of really nice vintage audio. Up here you have a Pioneer TX6800 tuner. That's an interesting looking tuner. I don't think I've seen too many of that model. Now here is a Sansui. Now this is one of their quartz locked models. Just massive stuff. This Yamaha M80 amplifier. If you want something that's like really powerful, this M80 will just blow you away. It has the red meters that you can see in there where we can pretty much see Bert in the reflection. I try to hide myself, although look, you can see me as well. You can't get away from the glowing reflections. I have no idea what this speaker is, but it's a pretty wild looking like 3-box stack. Now on top here, I am a little more familiar with this B&W. I've had some like larger B&Ws like this, and we actually just saw one of these Kevlar cones at another store. We saw the display up on the top shelf. And then back here, you actually have the original KEF Q driver, the original unique Q. They're on like their, I don't know, 8th, 9th generation, but this is the original. And then down here is the newest generation, the LS50 Meta. You got Bose 901s, talking about some of the most famous speakers in history. Controversial, but the 901-2s, the nice thing about the 1s and the 2s is you don't have to re-foam the drivers. They're not made of foam. Now we just arrived at his house, and here is Yamaha's best tuner they ever made, the CT7000. And this tuner, okay, weighs as much as a receiver. And I love this little flip down controls in the front. I mean, it is made definitely Yamaha's best tuner by far. And this is one of Yamaha's best turntables. It's the Yamaha PX2, and it was from 1980 to about 1983, and it's a linear turntable with a really cool dust cover that has like multi-levels to it. Then this is the Marantz ST8. It's a tuner that was built around 1980. It had that gyro touch tuner that Marantz really was made famous for, and this one actually had notches throughout it. But we all know the most eye-catching part of this tuner is the oscilloscope on the left that shows the FM signal and how accurate it is and the sound waves. So this tuner goes for about $1,000, very rare though. Then he had a really nice 3-head JVC cassette deck, and on top of it, a rare Denon CDR W1500 for recording CDs. But this is his personal listening system. You have a massive sub. You have an AudioQuest power conditioner, a Niagara. You got that 10B in the center, which is definitely the focal point to this entire system. A Macintosh MP1100 phono preamp on top of it. But like, look at how good that 10B kind of blends into this newer system with Yamaha's current flagship 5000 series turntable on top. This is actually the first time it's the second time I've ever got to listen to this. First time in someone's house. I actually saw it at a show where Yamaha had it on display, but it is a monster turntable. One thing that Yamaha has done over the years is they've really kept the looks of their premium hi-fi stuff kind of the same over time. And what more famous brand of doing that than Macintosh, right? So Macintosh looks the same year after year, but one brand that doesn't look the same anymore is Marantz, and there is that oscilloscope going with the FM signal, and that's what it looked like. If you have it hooked up, it's a beautiful tuner. That's why it's so sought after. But look at this system. You get the HiFi Rose under it, and I always put the tube clock on the HiFi Rose when I look at it. But man, that 7B just stands out in this entire hi-fi system as, like, to me, probably the coolest piece by far. I mean, it's just amazing looking. The oscilloscope is so bright. Usually you don't see it that bright. Look at that. Look how bright that oscilloscope is. Now, I did get sucked into the CEC CD player because of this door that you could, like, move to get to your CD, which is covered by a weight, so you can actually take the weight off. That's where you're going to put your CD. I don't know if it really helps how it sounds, but it is cool. We're back in Pennsylvania, where there was literally a tornado last night that knocked down trees across the entire area. I mean, look at that. The entire area has trees down everywhere. There's streets blocked off. I mean, I like the smell of fresh cut wood, but this is a little far. I mean, I expected this from like Oklahoma or Kansas, but Allentown, Pennsylvania, not what I expected. But I survived. We made it, and now we get to go check out Dan's Sound Room in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where we can get out of the disaster area. This is gonna take a while to clean up. The entire area was affected by the storm, including the street in front of Dan's Sound Room and his yard. I mean, there's his sign laying on the ground under branches, but that's not gonna stop us from checking out some great vintage hi-fi, because not only did I have a great time at Dan's Sound Room, but his entire family had a blast. The first room, Dan was showing off this Pioneer timer, the DT400, and underneath of it the CTF900 cassette deck with the door that holds the cassettes in and stops the dust from hitting the tape heads. You have a Sansui AU717 amp, and on the side the bag of original caps to show that he has serviced it. He has an entire service center built into his house for his store. Now down here we have one of the best looking crowns I've ever seen. It's the OC150. Now a lot of the crowns look like that bulky, almost junky feel. This one definitely did not. Underneath you have a Krell, the home theater standard. I'm not as familiar with that model of the Krell. Just like I'm not too familiar with this Power Block 3 from Tice. They were a company out of Florida back in the 90s. I'm not sure if they're still around. They may be, but I love how they have the analog meter. Just like on this Monster power supply, I love how instead of the digital readout that you see all the time, they decided to go with an analog one. I do like that for sure. It gives it that vintage touch. Going over here, you have the Cambridge, but underneath, look at this Bogan. This Bogan has like this green look, which I really enjoy. So for a tube amp, you know, not the most bulky or good looking amp. It's very basic, it's vintage, very vintage, but that green look is incredible. The Cambridge amp you have here is a little more plain looking, but it is a monster amp. I mean, you can see just the pure size of that. And on top, you have this AccuPhase preamp, the C200. It's an amazing preamp. I love how the front of it like comes down and there's all these controls underneath, but you can put the front back up so that you can't see them. Going back to the Cambridge, this is one of their bigger amps that they made. So just pulling out, you can see all the ventilation holes on top. And if you look at the back, it's built as like 2 mono blocks would be in one amp, so it separates both channels completely. You know, Cambridge has been making really nice stuff for an awful long time. I love all their new products, and that one doesn't disappoint either. But on top of that AccuPhase is the Mac 1900. These Mac receivers were made by Macintosh. Macintosh did not want to reveal that they were actually making receivers. They wanted to be known as a company that only made separate components, so they changed the name to Mac. These are highly sought after no matter what the model is. The Mac receivers are incredible sounding warm receivers that just look stunning. Much like a lot of the other Macintosh products like this MX113, they're just so hard to film. This Pioneer PL A35 on top is a beautiful turntable. The wood's in great shape, the logo's still in great shape. But Dan has something to show us now, so let's check out this.
What an amp.
Oh, what is that? I gotcha.
There it is on the back.
Newcomb Audio Products.
This baby is so smooth sounding. It sounds like a Mac amp.
Does it have a year on it? No.
Inside it like 50.
Yeah. That is
Beautiful
wild.
shape, too. Bass, treble.
Yeah.
See, there's a lot of stuff that's like this age that people just don't know about because, like,
it.
you know, I mean, Newcomb's a brand that some people have heard of, but most people have not. Most people haven't heard of that. So they would never know what it is or what it even does. I mean, just by looking at it, people might be, I don't know what that is, I'm going to pass that by, but they shouldn't.
Well, they actually made these for bands, you know, originally, because it has the
Oh, it has the mic inputs. Yeah, it has XLRs right there. That's
you run a
wild.
CD through this, it sounds darn good. Yeah.
Wow. All right, what other cool pieces you got? You're finding the crazy stuff. Oh, wow. It's a bell.
Yep.
And what is that? See, I don't even know what that is.
This is like a PA amp too, but you can run a CD music through it. Look at the dials.
Oh, wow. It's like little clocks. Look, they're just screws. They're screws with little hands on them.
Things going like 50 miles an hour.
Wow.
And it works. It works. Yeah.
It's a CL6.
Conrad Johnson.
This is the VAC. The Macintosh MC7205. It's like the amp where it has a center channel, but you can totally use it for a 2-channel amp.
Yep. Yeah, stereo. Yeah.
9090 dB.
That's all ready to go. You have one at that.
Yep. MC2125, those are real nice without being too giant. Some of the other ones are just way too big. SAE Tuner Mark 8. That's cool. It has
needs a bell length.
it has meters in the front.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold it up. I'll show you. It needs a bell right on the drive shaft here.
Oh, there's a belt on the tuner?
Yeah.
So you change it and that changes the digital part of the tuner.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't. The flywheel changes it.
You need the bell on there and then the flywheel will change.
Oh, so when you turn
That's the tuner. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A little rubber thing.
Yeah,
That's
so
beautiful.
that's what changes.
Yeah. The frequency.
That's wild.
Say,
Something different, huh?
It is different, yeah.
yeah.
Now, the second room Dan has was filled with amazing equipment. Now, he's just moving in when I was there filming, so everything's a little out of place. But you have reel-to-reels like this giant Akai Quad GX 400D. And it has those blue meters that Akai put on it, which is just an amazing feature that a lot of other brands don't have. Over here, you have a Pioneer 1020 reel-to-reel. The RT1020. I love the way they look. They're meant to go with the Spec series or the SX50 series back in that like mid 1970s. And I love the original reel, how Pioneer made those a little more detailed. You can see a little more tape. And underneath you have the Dynakit Mark IIIs as your excellent mono blocks from Dynaco. Then over here you have the Macintosh 2100. That's a 105 watt per channel amp, and it's beautiful. I mean, this one's in really good shape. I'm not pulling it out to show you more because it's way too heavy. There's the original manual so you can see what it looks like on the side. Over here you have a Sansui 771, some ADCOM equipment. Oh, I love these Kenwood. This is the KR3090 right there. Just amazing receivers from Kenwood. Now, Dan's been around a lot longer than I am. That's why he knows about these, and I have absolutely no clue. But what I do know about is JBLs, and these are some nice looking JBLs. They have the glass top, so you can put your plants, you can put your drinks, whatever you want to put on top, you can do that. These are the L55s from JBL. They resemble the Alltech Santanas to me, but I love how they have the logo on top. JBL made so many different speakers, it's hard for me to keep up with all the different designs. And talking about good speakers, Sherwin Vegas are getting way harder to find nowadays. Everybody loves these things. Then you got the Sansui TU717 tuner, which matches the amp we looked at earlier. You got a pair of vintage Stax Lam Danovas headphones that, you know, I don't use a lot of headphones, but Stax is a great brand. Look at this Victor, that is cool looking. Kenwood, some of the best made integrated amps you can find on the market. Any of the ones with the volume knob right there in the center are just absolutely incredible. And then these Infinity speakers right here are just fantastic. A lot of these over time, they need to be refoamed, but these have been done. If you ever see a pair of Emit tweeters on anything, you know, pick them up. Those Infinities are fantastic. These are the CS3009. Now in the main listening room, he had a pair of monoblock G9 tube amps. G9 is a company that was born out of Moscow, Russia in like early 2012. And all these have really nice KT150 tubes in them. Now I'm not gonna act like I know anything else really about this brand. He said it's very warm sounding, and I do know that they're all like meticulously handmade. So, you know, that's pretty cool. I'm sure they sound excellent. They look really nice, I think. But the KT150 tubes are the ones that he was saying were just really, really nice tubes for these amps. Again, I'm not an expert on any of those. I am an expert more on these Akai reel-to-reels. And oddly enough, my favorite part of this is the original Akai reel that's on it. I love the way Akai put their logo into the reel. And the glass heads will make these reels last forever. All of Dan's rooms were just filled with components. I can't wait to come back once he's got everything put back together the way it's supposed to look in here. You have the SAE 1800 parametric EQ. This is actually one you do not see every day at all. They're actually very rare. The SAE collectors love them, and it's pretty hard to get your hands on one of those. Now Dan's equipment changes all the time, just like a lot of vintage audio shops, but of course you're always going to have receivers like this Marantz 2245, and then like an integrated amp like the Marantz 1180. This is a really cool piece. Like if I was to get one, that's probably the one that I would choose out of most of what I saw, because I love the way they look and sound. The Marantz integrated amps are just absolutely incredible stuff, just like these JBLs. So these are the JBL L26s, and the cool thing about these is I've actually took a pair of JBL Primas, which are a different version of this that actually have stacked cases that you can build. The theory was you could build an entire room around them and stack them, put components on the inside, and make like a mid-century modern look, or what was in during the 70s. So these are the exact same speakers. I completely remodeled them, got new badges, put the badges on the Primas, because once you pull those badges off, you're done. Like there's no way of fixing them. I actually found a guy that did badges, and I don't know what happened to him. So if you guys know how to get in touch with him, That would be a cool guy to let everybody know about because he made them look like brand new. Just like this Pioneer SX535 looks. I mean, that looks pretty brand new. You got the CTF 9191. This is one of the best looking and probably best sounding cassette decks from Pioneer, but you can't fix them very well, so I usually stay away from those. The SX737, fantastic 1974 Pioneer receiver, has the blue glow like we saw earlier. And then you got more of those emit tweeters from Infinity. Now these are extremely popular. You got the Polydome mid-range, which is cool. I love how they put that like dome around the metal dome of that speaker. You got a dual 1229 turntable right here, and then this Bose sign, like I saw this and this was one of the best things I saw all day. I love any kind of vintage signage. It lights up from the back, and I'm not completely sure what year it was or if anything's been modded, but man, it is cool to see stuff like that. Now, one of the custom projects that Dan Sun was actually working on was redoing a pair of JBL L300s, making them a little more custom, but with all original parts. So there were some very rare JBL parts inside these original parts. Heavy duty, dude, that magnet was so heavy. But all original. You got the magnet, we got the driver over here working on replacing the dust cap, but it's an LE15A. Dan also had this really cool Beatles framed commemorative gold record. Now, you know, there's no certificate of authenticity or if this was an original or whatnot, but it was really cool to look at. You kind of just got drawn into it because of the gold records. So, hey, you know, whether it's original or not, I don't really care. It was really a cool piece.
What is this?
An organ amp.
Out of an organ?
Yeah, but they make good ghetto.
So you can use a lot of pro stuff as home amps too. Like that's an okay thing to do.
Right.
Wow. Is there a brand on that?
No,
Nope.
it's a no name.
It's a no name out of an organ, but it sounds good.
It could be a Hammond or an Allen organ. I don't know.
That's
One of the two.
That's the secret, is to find something like
Find
that.
out. Nice.
See, that's made really well. Look how well that's made. Point-to-point wiring
Yep.
right there
Look at that
at its
resist.
finest. Yeah, look at the size of that.
Look at that.
Oh, there's some right. Yeah.
Out right now, Bert.
Wow.
So we lined up to take a group photo, but I accidentally had it on video mode.
Hey, what's better than hot rods?
Hey!
Stereo gear. Stereo gear. Stereo. Good stuff from the 70s. We like it.